He kept a checklist, 87 items, typed into a Microsoft Word document, saved on a hard drive he later tried to delete. It read like a shopping list. Cat litter, tarps, hair nets, saw, cutting tools, heavy rope for the neck, light rope broke under stress. Under the section he labeled Things to Remember, he wrote a single line that prosecutors say tells you everything about the man who wrote it. More sleep and noise control equals more playtime. He was an architect. He commuted to Manhattan in a suit. He had a wife, 2 kids, a modest house on a quiet Long Island street where the neighbors barely noticed him. For 17 years, he hunted, strangled them, wrapped them in burlap, bound their bodies at the head, the midsection, the legs, and dumped what was left along a stretch of beach highway that became one of the most haunted patches of sand in America. He almost got away with it. And the only reason he didn't is a pizza crust he threw in a Manhattan trash can. This is the story of the Gilgo Beach Serial Killer and the document he wrote that may be the most chilling piece of evidence in modern American crime. Massapequa Park is the kind of place you drive through without remembering. A middle-class village on Long Island's South Shore. Tidy lawns, commuter trains, about 40 miles east of New York City. That's where Rex Heuermann lived, on First Avenue, in a weathered, brown-shingled house he'd grown up in. He was 6'4", towered over almost everyone he met. By day, he ran an architecture consultancy out of a Fifth Avenue office in Midtown Manhattan. By night, he commuted home to his wife, Asa Ellerup, their daughter, Victoria, a son, a cat. His victims lived very different lives. Melissa Barthelemy was 24, from Buffalo, a hairstylist who came to New York chasing a better life. Megan Waterman was 22, a young mother from Maine. Her daughter Liliana was 3 years old. Amber Lynn Costello was 27. Maureen Brainerd Barnes was 25. Jessica Taylor was 20. Valerie Mack was 24. Sandra Castilla was 28. And Karen Vergata, 8 women, most of them sex workers. All of them, prosecutors say, lured by the same man, using the same script for the same purpose. Most disappeared between 2000 and 2010. The oldest case dates back to 1993. For decades, nobody connected the dots. December 2010, Suffolk County. A police officer was running his K-9 partner through a routine training exercise in the scrub brush along Ocean Parkway in Gilgo Beach. The dog hit on something in the bramble. It was a body, wrapped in burlap. Within days, investigators found 3 more sets of remains in the same stretch, bound the same way, discarded the same way. The world would come to call them the Gilgo Four, Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, Amber Lynn Costello, Maureen Brainerd Barnes. Over the following months into 2011, more remains surfaced. Jessica Taylor, Valerie Mack, Karen Vergata, partial, scattered, some dismembered, some discovered miles away in Manorville, in a wooded patch off Mill Road. And the case went cold. For more than a decade, families lived in the space between heartbreak and hope. They begged for answers. They got silence. Then, in 2022, Suffolk County put together a new task force, a multi-agency effort, state police, FBI, the Suffolk County Sheriff, and they started over. One investigator focused on a single, strange detail buried in old witness statements. A distinct green Chevrolet Avalanche pickup truck, spotted near the disappearance of one of the victims in 2010. The truck was registered to Rex Heuermann, but suspicion isn't proof. They needed DNA, so they followed him. On a Manhattan sidewalk in 2023, surveillance officers watched him eat a slice of pizza, finish the crust, and drop it into a public trash can. They retrieved it. The DNA on that crust matched genetic material extracted from rootless hairs found on the bodies of the Gilgo Four. On July 13, 2023, Rex Heuermann was arrested as he walked down a busy New York City street after work, reportedly oblivious that police had been on him for months. Quick question for you before we go deeper. Pause and think. If your neighbor lived a double life this dark, would you have spotted a single sign? Drop your honest answer in the comments. I want to read them. This is where the case turns from horror story to nightmare. When investigators searched Heuermann's Massapequa Park home, they pulled out 58 hard drives, roughly 400 electronic devices, 120 terabytes of data. Buried in the unallocated space of one of those drives, a place where deleted files leave fingerprints, they found a Microsoft Word document titled HK 2002-04, created in 2000, edited through 2002. Prosecutors call it the planning document, a blueprint. They say Rex Heuermann used it to methodically blueprint and plan out his kills. The document had 4 categories: problems, supplies, DS, TRG. DS stood for dump site, Mill Road in Manorville, Ocean Parkway, the exact locations where remains were found. TRG stood for target. The entry read, small is good. Every confirmed victim was a petite woman. There were checklists: pre-prep, post-event, body prep. It read, wash body inside and all cavities. Remove ID marks. Remove head and hands. 2 of the victims, Jessica Taylor and Valerie Mack, had been dismembered exactly that way. Tattoos mutilated, heads and hands removed. The things to remember section is what investigators say cracked the case open further. Sound travels. Get sleep before hunt. Too tired creates problems. And references to pages of the book Mindhunter by former FBI profiler John Douglas. The book serial killers read. That note about sound travels sent detectives back to his basement. Under infrared light, they say they found a cordoned-off area where adhesive had been applied. Push pins in the drop ceiling, consistent with hanging drop cloths. Prosecutors believe the killings happened inside that house, while his wife and children were out of town, every time. And here's the detail that should make you stop breathing for a second. Heuermann had a collection of bondage and torture pornography on his devices dating back to 1994. Prosecutors say the violence depicted in those images coincides with how 3 of the victims' remains were ultimately found. He wasn't improvising, he was rehearsing. All 8 victims were strangled, some were dismembered, some had identifying features removed, tattoos cut from skin, heads and hands separated from torsos, bodies cleaned of cavities, wrapped in burlap, bound at 3 points, but the damage didn't end at the dump sites. Melissa Barthelemy's sister, Amanda Funderburg, was just 15 years old when Melissa disappeared. Heuermann allegedly called the family phone multiple times from Midtown Manhattan, blocks from his office. He told a 15-year-old child that her sister's body was rotting, that he had raped her. For 17 years, Amanda lived with that voice in her head. Liliana Waterman was 3 when her mother Megan vanished. She was 9 when she scrolled past a news story on her phone and learned how her mother had really died. In an instant, she told the court, "My world shattered." Dylan Haggett was 1 year old when his mother, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, was killed. He grew up without ever knowing her voice. These weren't just murders. They were generational wounds. On April 8, 2026, in a Suffolk County courtroom in Riverhead, Rex Heuermann pleaded guilty. 3 counts of first-degree murder under New York penal law, 4 counts of second-degree murder, and a sworn allocution admitting to the killing of Karen Vergata, though he was not formally charged in her death as part of the plea deal. On June 17, 2026, Justice Timothy P. Mazzei handed down the sentence. 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole for the first-degree murders of Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. plus 4 consecutive sentences of 25 years to life for the second-degree murders of Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Jessica Taylor, Sandra Costilla, and Valerie Mack. 3 life terms, plus 100 years. When asked if he had anything to say, Heuermann said quietly, "There are no words I can say. I am responsible for all that was said in this room today. The words I would say have no meaning." Judge Mazet looked at him and said, "You are a disgusting, despicable, and small man, if you are a man at all, and you are a coward." District Attorney Raymond Tierney was less generous. "There is no doubt this defendant is sorry," he told reporters. "He is sorry he got caught." His own defense attorney, Michael Brown, told reporters Heuermann had cried in private, that there may be some sincerity in his expressions of remorse. As part of his plea, Heuermann agreed to sit down with the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit, the real-life Mindhunter team, the same unit whose book he studied to learn how to kill. They'll spend days inside his head, hundreds of questions, childhood, fantasies, method, victim selection. And here's what nobody knows yet, the thing that should keep you up tonight. Investigators believe Rex Heuermann may be linked to additional killings. The happy face killer, Keith Jesperson, has been corresponding with him from a prison in Oregon since shortly after his arrest. He's hinted Heuermann has more to say. His own checklist. That planning document was created in 2000, but Sandra Costilla was murdered in 1993, 7 years before he wrote a single word of that file. What was he doing in those 7 years? How many other women? Tell me in the comments. Do you believe a man this organized, this patient, started killing in 1993 and stopped in 2010? Or do you think the FBI is about to learn about victims nobody has reported missing yet? 8 women have names again because their families never stopped saying them. Melissa, Megan, Amber, Maureen, Jessica, Sandra, Valerie, Karen. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button so the next case finds you, and share this video with someone who still thinks evil looks like a stranger in a dark alley. Because the truth is darker than that. Sometimes evil drives a green pickup truck. Sometimes it carries a briefcase. Sometimes it sits on the train next to you. On the morning commute home to a quiet house, on a quiet street, with a checklist in a folder no one will ever see.